All right, good morning again, everyone. Once again, I'm Sarah Moraes of Vertical Measures, here today with Jim Kukral, author of many books, including Attention, This Book Will Make You Money, How to Use Attention Getting Online Marketing to Increase Your Revenue, and owner of Digital Book Launch, a book marketing services company. You can read more about him at his blog, No Publisher Needed. Also on the line today is Arnie Ken, president of Vertical Measures and author, self-published author of Accelerate, Move Your Business Forward Through the Convergence of Search, Social, and Content Marketing. Between these two, you'll certainly be on your way to publishing and marketing your own book and building your own self-publishing empire. We'll be happy to answer your questions at the end of the presentation, so please make sure to ask them in the chat applet located on your screen. And if you are having technical difficulties, please attempt to reconnect or just let me know in the chat area. You can also tweet with us today. Today's hashtag is self-publishing. I'm sure that we would love to keep the conversation going after the webinar is over. The webinar is going to be recorded and posted on the same landing page that you used to register. I'll be sending the link out to everyone when we're finished here today, hopefully by the end of the day, if not tomorrow. So without further delay, let's get started. Jim, please take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. And it's very great to be here with you and everybody today. And Arnie, it's great to have you talking and on the line because you and I spoke at a conference in a few months ago, and we shared a lot of insight about the self-publishing world, and I think that's what led to this, right?
Exactly. Yep. I'm glad to be here, and glad you're on as well, and I'm going to let you pretty much run the show. I'll participate when you prod me to.
All right, so let me just share my screen here with you all, and we will get started. All right, how's that look?
Looks good.
Arnie, can you see my screen?
Yep,
okay,
I can see it fine. Yep.
All right, well, welcome everybody to the new rules of self-publishing. My name is Jim Kukral, and I'm the CEO of a company called digitalbooklaunch.com. And today we are going to talk about self-publishing. And this is not going to be a diatribe against the traditional publishing world, although I do have some opinions on that may come out in the next 45 minutes or so. But this is going to be about what's going on in the new way of self-publishing, how you can do it, what's happening, who else is doing it, the tools, the tips, the tricks, everything that's happening, so you can get a better understanding and a better feeling for what is possible for self-publishing in the future. So let's get started. Real quickly, I've been doing this internet thing for over 15 years. I got started right when the internet started to become a business sort of idea. I'm the author of 6 books with 5 more books in progress and 30 more in my head. I just don't have enough time to write all those books. I'm the CEO of a company called Digital Book Launch. We specialize in helping authors and potential authors create the books that make most sense for them, get them launched, pre-sell them, pre-sale them, and can actually make money and actually do great book marketing, because book marketing starts at book conception. We believe that. And I'm also a self-employed and happy entrepreneur. I've been doing this for a long time. I've owned a lot of big companies, and I've worked for a lot of big companies, and now I like doing it on my own. I like to write books, and I like to speak, and I like to come in and help people figure out how to improve their businesses, their lives, their careers, and that's what I do today, and I love doing it. I have been all over the place in terms of who being mentioned for my businesses and what I've done. I speak internationally. There's a picture of me speaking at a TED event. I teach classes for the University of San Francisco Internet Marketing Program to students all over the globe. I've taught thousands and thousands of students on the topics of affiliate marketing, search, social media, publishing, you name it, anything internet marketing related. So why am I telling you all this stuff? Well, I want you, I don't have an ego, right? This is about me just trying to give you an indication that I know what the heck I'm talking about. I've been doing this internet stuff a long time. Now recently, in the last couple years, I've gotten into the whole publishing book thing. I've had ebooks published for over 10 years. I sold one of the very first ebooks online about how to make money from a blog called Blogs to Riches way, way back in the day. But until August of 2010, I had never had a book traditionally published, and I did so. During that time, I realized how much I loved writing books and having them published. And as you can see, here's a copy of some of the books I've had published on my own through self-publishing since I've had the traditionally published book put out. You can see, and I have so many more books that I'm ready to put out as well. And as you can see, you know, it's possible to get them into the #1 categories on Amazon and places like that and get lots of reviews for them. So I publish a lot. So I know a lot about publishing. I also know a lot about marketing. I know a lot about business online and raising money. As a matter of fact, the book you're looking at right now is a series of 3 books that I'm currently writing, which I just finished raising over $35,000 for through the power of the crowd to pre-fund my books. In other words, I created a virtual signing bonus for books that I haven't even written yet. And now I have to write the books, but I use the power of crowd, of people in the industry, associates, friends, social media followers, people who didn't know me. And they were able to pledge to me over $35,000 of money that I could take to use to spend time writing my book, hire editors, proofers, cover designers, all the things that you can do to produce a really great self-published book. And you don't need a publisher to do this, to do the pre-funding, to produce your own book. I am proof positive. I've raised over $35,000 with my own work to go out there and get it done, my own connections. And as a matter of fact, I wrote a book about it, which just kind of illustrates how amazing this entire industry is right now. Because if you have a knowledge about something in your head and you've done something that other people want to know how you did it, or people want to know how to be like you or learn to do what you know how to do, you know, you kind of start getting that concept now because bloggers have started, you know, blogs about those topics and people have started products about those. But maybe you haven't thought about turning that into books. And the reason you haven't thought about turning it into books is because of the way that publishing has been before and the way that publishing is now. In the past, what happened was if you wanted to have a book put out there, you would have to go through the traditional publishing way, which was to get an agent, if you could get one, to submit your manuscript to publishers and sit through big giant piles of rejections. We've all seen the movies. You know, it's absolutely true. The author keeps sending their manuscript in and they don't hear back and nobody wants to publish their book. That's, you know, that's absolutely true. That's exactly what has been happening for the longest time. These publishers have been acting like gatekeepers. And basically they've been saying is, well, we don't think this work is qualified enough. You know, Chicken Soup for the Soul, which has literally sold 100 million copies around the world, was rejected by a publisher, by I think 35 different publishers. You know, so, and I can tell you 100 stories like that. The point is that the old model of get a publisher to decide that your book is worthy, you know, and then get an agent and then hopefully get your book published. That's why people haven't thought about producing books self-published now, because they don't realize that's the old way of doing it. And these people are still doing it, but they didn't realize there's potential for you to do it another way. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the new rules of self-publishing. Excuse me. Because there's this huge shift happening, and it just happened in the last year. Now, my first book, traditionally published book, came out in August of 2010. A few months right before this huge shift really happened. And this chart illustrates exactly what happened to one author named Michael Sullivan. And I put the link to the article on here if you want to go read the entire article. But this has been the best proof that I can show that something dramatic happened in October of 2010. And these numbers, if you go read the post, these numbers come across all the way across all of the authors that are self-publishing on Kindle and everywhere else. If you can see what happened, look at that. Those are digital book sales. Look what happened on October 2010. We're trying to pinpoint what that was. Was it Amazon started to promote the Kindle books more? Was it more people just finally started to pick up e-readers and things like that? I don't know exactly what it was, but I do know it's a fact, and I do know it's happened. And look at that and tell me that that is not a big shift. And that is exactly what the big publishers and the traditional publishers of the world have been worried about for the longest time. The adoption of digital books in people's minds and the acceptance of them. So this shift happened, and amazing, amazing things happened. Jeff Bezos. We all know who Jeff Bezos is. He's the CEO of Amazon. Jeff Bezos says, for every 100 hardcover books Amazon sells, they sell 180 Kindle books. 180 books in digital form to every 100 printed cover books. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know between the shift and what he's saying right there, I've got more proof for you. But this is proof that digital books have really dramatically changed. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And we will talk about those specific reasons today. But you can see that that number that he's giving out, and I think this article was in October of 2011, that goes up and up every single week, every single month. Do you know what that number is going to look like in a year from now? So I'm trying to illustrate to you how important and how big of a shift and how huge this entire self-publishing thing is. Because there's a lot of you out there right now who maybe aren't convinced. And I don't want to try and teach you or try to convince you something you're never going to believe. But I want you to open your mind, and I want you to think about all the things that I'm talking about today. And I want you to say, you know what, maybe there is something to this. Now let's talk about a few examples of people who had some amazing success doing these things. There's a woman named Amanda Hocking who literally has sold over 1 million digital copies of 9 of her books, and she's earned over $2 million in sales. She wrote 17 novels in her spare time and began self-publishing them in April 2010. By early 2011, she'd done over $2 million in sales. Now, I think that's a pretty compelling story, don't you? If somebody who can write and produce quality content, quality information, and put it out there and make that much money without the need of a publisher, without the need of a gatekeeper to decide if that content is ready for the world. John Locke's another one. He sold over 1 million ebooks in the Kindle store. And by the way, the Kindle store works like this. If you price your book between $3 and $10, you get to keep 70% of the profits. So if you price your book at $9.99, you get to keep $7. If you go with a traditional publisher, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but if you go with a traditional publisher, usually you're going to get, after your agent takes their cut and everything else, you'll get about 17.5% commission on every book, which usually amounts to about $1 or $1.50 or less for every book that's sold. Which would you rather have, 70% or the 15% or 17%? So there's a lot of people having huge, amazing success with self-publishing these days. And I could go on and on and on, but we don't have time for that today because we want to talk about self-publishing, why it's taking off, and talk about the differences between traditional and self-publishing, okay? So again, I don't want to turn this into a presentation where I'm bashing traditional publishing. I think that the people in traditional publishing are very nice people and they're very smart, except I think that they have some really wrong things happening in their industry, and that they've left this door open for self-publishing people to come in and just blow their doors off, and they refuse to make any changes. So I don't want to make that argument for you today. although I could do that in a completely another webinar. I've had a traditionally published book, and I can tell you right now, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know why? Because I realized that I did not want to do that for the rest of my life and work in that format, because I'm too much of an entrepreneur. I like to have control. I like to be able to market my book. I had to do all the marketing anyway myself. Why shouldn't I own the book, right? And that's a copy of my book there, Attention, This Book Will Make You Money. But the question for you, and I want to get my agenda out of the way today because I'm not trying to convince you either way. I want you to understand which is right for you, because everybody writes a book for a different reason. In the nonfiction business marketing space, the reason a lot of people write books in my space is because when you have a book, you can increase your consulting fees and get more speaking gigs, right? And things like that, and that. Now, it can be argued what the difference is between doing quotes with my hands, a real book and a digital book. And frankly, I don't think there's a difference, except for the fact that a real book from a publisher comes in a hardcover. I think that's the only difference. Okay? In a couple of years or a year from now, I don't think there's going to be any difference. Because I can tell you right now, I can produce a book and put it up on Amazon and write my own description, get a great cover made, get it edited, and put it up there and have it on. And I can also have a print-on-demand version of it online. So, but you have to decide what is right for you. If you're writing serial fiction, if you're writing vampire novels or romance novels, you know, what is a publisher going to do for you that you can't do on your own? And those are really, really important questions, and we'll get into all that. But what is your agenda? I see it breaking down into two things. Your agenda is either to make a ton of money from the direct sales of your books, or your agenda is to use your book as a launching board so that you can get bigger speaking gigs and things like that. Although Arnie will tell you, and I don't know if Arnie's still on the line, but Arnie has a book that is self-published, and I don't think that because his book is self-published, he gets any less speaking gigs. Would you agree, Arnie, if you're there?
I am on the line, and I'm fascinated so far by your whole presentation. I'm not going to hang up. Yeah, it's absolutely the case. It's gone totally the other direction. It's all been positive.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I mean, you're talking, don't just listen to me, listen to Arnie. He speaks all over the place. And he has a self-published book, and I've read the book, and I've held the book in my hands. I've gotten a print copy of his book. You could never tell me that this was not a regular, real book, because it is. There's no difference. It's a printed book and a digital book. It's a beautiful book. It's a well-written book, and it works for his agenda. So the question for you is, what is your agenda? And there's a lot of things that come into place. Do you value control? If you're trying to decide what you're going to do, traditional versus self-publishing, do you value control? You know, that book that you're looking at on the screen right now, my Attention book, I poured my heart and soul into 75,000 words of that book. I love that book. But you know what? I don't own that book. My publisher owns it. And if they can price it however they want, they can distribute it however they want, they could take it off the shelves if they wanted to. And that's the contract I signed with them. And that's on me. Because I learned after that I didn't need them to do any of that. And I showed you the books that I self-publish on my own now. So as an entrepreneur, I want that control. There are other people who I know in the industry who I've had discussion with who are very successful authors who have they don't want that control at all. They don't want anything to do with it. They want to just hand off a manuscript and let somebody just completely handle all the stuff. And I think that's okay, but I don't think that the value you get from a traditional publisher for the 17.5 commission they give you and no rights of your book forever, you know, not owning the content, I don't think that they do enough to warrant that amount of money. Okay? If they were going to give me 70% like Amazon is, then maybe I would feel better about it. But the traditional publishing world has a lot of problems in terms of not being able to want to change their business model. They want to be the gatekeepers, they want to control everything, and they don't want to pay the authors what the authors are worth because they can make a lot more money. The problem is there's a lot of problems. So the question for you is, are you thinking long-term here? Because I actually want to write a blog post, Arnie. Maybe you can help me with this. I want to write a blog post on my blog called Self-Publishing Intervention. And I want to go out to all my friends in the industry who are still stuck in those traditional publishing contracts, and I want to do an intervention on them, which is, why are you continuing to write these books for these publishers who are giving you 17.5% commission on your books and who are owning your content? So I need to write that, and it would be a lot of fun. But
I'd be happy to edit it.
What's that?
I'd be happy to edit it.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't think a lot of these authors are thinking long term, and I don't want you on this webinar to make the same mistakes that a lot of people are going to make. Okay? In the last couple of years, publishers saw all of this coming. They're not idiots. They saw Amazon. They saw the digital book and e-readers coming. And they knew what they had to do. They went out, especially in my industry, and they signed up and locked up. Like, I went to dinner the other night at a conference with all my friends, and I think we had 15 people at the table, and 13 of them were signed up by my publisher, because they went out and they signed deals with everybody to lock people into these contracts so they couldn't do exactly what I'm explaining here today. Because once you're locked into a publisher contract, you have to give first right of refusal for your next book in perpetuity, on, and you're locked in. And we need to, I want you to think longer term than that. If you're just going to put one book out and you're going to build it for your brand, and you can actually get a publisher deal, I suggest you take it. Okay? But if you're going to build a career, you're going to write more books, you're going to produce expertise over time, which I think that everybody should do, and we'll talk about one of those strategies, then you should consider self-publishing, because it's really an amazing thing. Now, there are pros and cons of self-publishing. The pros are you can put a book to market fast. You can control every aspect of it, the pricing, the cover, everything, the marketing of it, right? Lots of pros involved. You get to keep more money from the sales of it. Those are really some amazing pros. The cons are you've got to do a little bit of the work, right? You've got to hire a cover designer, which is not hard to do, to find really qualified people to design covers nowadays. You've got to hire an editor and a proofer. Again, do you have any idea how many super skilled, qualified people are sitting at home out of work today? I don't think a lot of people realize this. But there are people who were top editors and designers at some of the biggest companies in the world who have lost their jobs, are sitting at home, and are just waiting for somebody to come in and give them $100 or $150 to edit their book or to do a design for them. Believe me, it's absolutely true. You just have to find those people. So it doesn't take $3,000 to have a book cover design. That's highway robbery. The cons are you got to spend some time finding those people, and I can help you find those people. And the other con is you have to kind of do all your own marketing. But here's the truth. The publishers didn't do it anyway. They never did it for you anyway. You had to do it all yourself anyway. Okay? So this is kind of a bogus thing. There really isn't a lot of cons to it because it's so easy, and we're going to talk about that. Now, Mark Cuban, who's one of my mentors, he wrote a blurb for the back of my Attention book, and somebody that I've been communicating with for years. I got lots of great stories about Mark. I never actually hung out with him, but I know him, and we exchange emails, and I respect his opinion. If you don't know who he is, he's a guy who sold Broadcast.com to Yahoo in 1999, or forget what it was, for literally $3.5 billion, right? So he's an instant billionaire overnight. He has since bought the Dallas Mavericks NBA franchise. And Mark just recently did something in the last couple of weeks, which I thought was really, really interesting, is Mark self-published. And this kind of backs up my argument that traditional publishing is a bad business decision. Because when you look at what a super smart billionaire businessman said about self-publishing, you'll see I'm right. He was interviewed, And the interview was, well, why did you self-publish? Because you could have easily just made one phone call or one email to any top big 6 publishing firm in the world and said, would you publish my book? And they would have given you money, and they would have thrown, riches at you and done the whole thing for you. And he said, well, I realized why I self-published was because it's just a bad business deal. And plus, it was just easier for me to have somebody edit this, put a cover on it, and put it up online. Even billionaires, and by the way, when you're a billionaire, you're usually pretty smart. There's not many people that just become billionaires because they just lucked into money, right? Even this guy, who has no game in the self-publishing world, can look at it from the outside and say, you know what? It doesn't make any sense to go with a publisher model these days. It makes sense to self-publish, and that's exactly what he did. And he used the power of his platform, of social media and his blog and everything to move this book to a top bestseller instantly. And that's what he did. He's continuing to do, and the book sells great. And I encourage you to actually download and read his book. The truth be told, it's a compilation of a lot of his blog posts over the last 3 or 4 years from his blog. But if you've never read Mark's blog and you're an entrepreneur and you want to start your own business, I can't highly recommend this book more than I really can. I mean, it's just an unbelievable book. But Mark understands that this is a bad business decision to traditionally publish. Harry Potter. You guys ever hear of a woman named J.K. Rowling? Yeah, she was, this is a great story not a lot of people know. J.K. was living in a flat in Scotland, living on government assistant living, and barely getting by when she had an idea to write a series of books, or write a book called Harry Potter. And, we all know where J.K. is today. She's literally sitting on top of $1 billion empire with her own theme park, and you name it. And what's interesting about J.K. is this. You may have not realized this, and I never did as well, is that J.K. never, ever put out digital copies of any of her Harry Potter books. The publisher that she was with, she said, we're just gonna put out print copies. And they sold millions and millions of them, and it made her a billionaire, right? So J.K. did something this summer that I thought that was really, really revolutionary and really, really smart. She said, you know what? I already have a fan base. So why don't I just say to my publisher, you know what? I'm going to take all the digital copies of my book, and I'm going to sell them myself. And here's really the really great twist on this. Instead of even putting them on Amazon, she said, no, I'm not even going to use Amazon. I'm going to create a new site called Pottermore. I think that's what it's called. I always get it, Pottermore or Potter or something. And I'm going to build my own website. And if you would like to download digital copies of my book, of all my books that have never been released before, you have to come to my website. And you have to pay me direct. I don't even have to pay Amazon their cut anymore. And this, my friends, is the future of selling books online. When you go direct to consumer. Right now, a lot of us, the majority of us, are still stuck with, we got to go where the eyeballs are, where Amazon is. But if you look at what J.K. Rowling's doing, she already has a platform. She's already got the audience. She's making the audience now come to her. And this is a great lesson for anybody who's thinking about putting out a book in the future or has one now. You need to be building your platform, your blog, your website, your email list, your social media channels. Because when you have fans on your platform is when you have control. And again, it's going to come back to this again. It makes better business decision to have control. Ask anyone who's ever been in business, who's ever run a successful business. When you have control, you are better off. When you are relying on Google and Amazon and publishers and bookstores to control your fate, it is a flawed business model. And JK gets it. Because here's what JK is going to do. She's going to launch her site Pottermore, and she's going to say, all right, come get my digital books. But if you want my digital books, you're going to have to register at Pottermore. Okay, so she's going to get 100 million people probably to come to her website and register. I want you to just think about that for a second. Imagine, even if she doesn't get 100 million, she gets 10 million. Imagine getting 10 million people to sign up for your email list or your website. Think of the things that you could do with that. And think about all of those people being true hardcore fans of you and what you do. I mean, just think of the potential of that. She could go out and send an email to everybody in her list one day and say, you know what? I'm going to release a new short story I wrote about Harry does this. And I'm going to sell it to just you guys, and I'm going to charge 99 cents for it. And she's going to send that out to 10 million people. And guess what? She's going to keep 99% of the profits. She's going to have to pay a little bit to the credit card company, but she's going to keep 100% of the profit minus the credit card cut. And she's going to make $10 million for sending an email over and over and over again because she has built a platform. She has built a group of fans. She has built fans that are going to come and do anything she wants. So the reason I'm showing you this is because this is the future. The business end of selling books is very closely related to building your brand, building information products, building membership sites. And this is the way that it's going to go. So we're half an hour in. As you can tell, I'm extremely passionate about this stuff. I hope you're enjoying this. Let's talk about some self-publishing questions that you may have in your head right now because you are not into this. You don't know what to do, what the possibilities are, and that's what I want to cover now in the last few minutes that we have together. So when I got traditionally published and I realized that it wasn't something I ever wanted to do again, I started to notice that shift happening that we talked about in the very beginning, and I said to myself, well, what we have to do now, what I have to do now is go out and figure out everything I possibly can about the self-publishing business, and that's what I did. So these are some questions that I had when I first started, and I know that you have right now. Is it easy? Yes. The answer is it is very easy because you have things that we're going to talk about on the next screen where it's so simple to take a Word document and just upload it and have a book online. You know, one of the biggest questions I get asked by my students or my clients all the time is this. You know, they understand that it's important that they should write a book. I can make that case to them. But there's this one thing that stops them every single time, and this is it. They say, well, Jim, I just don't know how to write a book. And here's my answer. Open up a Microsoft Word document or a Google Docs document. Start writing. When you're done, hit save. And that's essentially how you write a book. And it's really that simple. You know, the traditional publishers of the world for the last hundreds of years have made you think that only they could publish books and only they could edit and craft books. Excuse me. The truth is that any of you can do it, and it's as simple as opening up a document and starting to write. Your book does not have to be 100,000 words. Your book does not have to be completely perfect. Your book does not have to be formatted in any specific way, right? It doesn't have to have this super secret formatted Word document that's going to take you 6 hours to figure out how to do. All of those things are thrown out the window. Those were the things that the publishing industry wanted us to believe for the longest time. Because you know why? Because it stopped us from thinking we could do it ourselves, right? This is very similar to what happened with blogging in the early 2000s, right? I started blogging in 2001, a month before 9/11. And I always remember it because I started writing at that time. But it was the same thing that happened then. Everyone thought, well, the gatekeepers are falling, and they were. The same thing is happening now in the book business. Anyone can produce a book. And that book does not have to be 75,000 words. In my opinion, the future of books is this. I believe that people will create books, digital format, that are between 15 and 30,000 words. which technically in a hardcover that would be, 100 pages, 120 pages. I believe that people are going to want to read things called microbooks, which are between 15 and 30,000 words. And I believe that's what people want. They want the answers to their problems. They want to be entertained. They do not want to sit down and read a 200,000 word book anymore, especially when you're reading it on a Kindle device or an iPad or something like that. People want quick. They want the information fast. They want it to be entertaining, and they're willing to buy more of it as long as what they got in the first one was good. In other words, if you wrote a 15,000 word book and somebody said, like, that was amazing, then you can have another one to follow that up right after, and people will download that. So that's what I believe the future of books is, and that's what I want you to get your head around, because that's how important this is, and this is what you, in my opinion, you should be doing. Is it expensive to self-publish? The answer to that question is no. It depends on what you decide as expensive as. To get a really nice professional cover done, you can do it for a couple $100. To get editing done, again, another couple $100, editing and proofing. Other than that, there really aren't any other costs involved. And this is another thing that the publishing industry wanted you to think, that there were thousands and thousands of dollars of cost involved. There's not. The way that it exists now is you get a cover, you get an edit, you have your book, and you can upload it and have your book online in 24 hours or less. And the question that a lot of you may have now, you're also saying, is it hard? And I'm going to talk about some of the tools that will make it easy for you on the next slide. But the last question, and I know you have more, so we're going to take questions at the end. But the last question that I put up here on the screen was, should I go digital or print? And this goes back to what I said earlier, which is you can do both. There is no difference between a digital or a print book to a reader now. The reader is going to consume it how they want. I've been saying this for 10 years, and Arnie will back me up on this. You have to put your content, your marketing messages, in the places that your target audience wants to consume it at. You cannot be just go out and say, well, I'm only going to put my stuff out in this format, or I'm only going to use Facebook, or I'm only going to use this. That is not the correct business decision. You have to put your content in multiple places so that your audience can decide how they want it. So if you're saying self-publishing, you put it in digital form and you also put it in print. And you're saying, well, how do we put it in print, Jim? Well, there are companies that exist that will create things called print on demand. And every self-published book I put up there, when you go to the Amazon page for any of my books, you can order the digital version, instantly download it to your iPad or your Kindle, or you can choose the print version. And here's how it works. It's called print on demand. And every time someone orders it, the order gets sent to the warehouse, the print company. They print up one copy of the book, and they ship it out to the person. Now, again, the person ordering on Amazon has no idea that there's not a warehouse of books sitting around that's going to be shipped. They have no idea. All they know is they're ordering a print copy of the book. And that's the truth. And that's the thing that traditional publishers and people who love traditional publishing have been waving in front of your face for the longest times as one of the things that they thought you needed to have. Well, it's not a real book if it's not printed. Guess what? There is no difference, and it's easy to do. So there are DIY solutions to do everything that we want to do. Okay? On the right-hand side, you can see the three big places that you want to upload your books to. Amazon, Kindle, Direct Publishing is the first one. I do another webinar, which maybe we could do another time, where I actually go into Amazon and show you how to upload a book. It's really not that hard. You go in, you upload a cover, you upload your book, you put in your title, your description, you add an author, you choose the pricing, you hit save. It doesn't cost anything, by the way. It's completely free. And then within 24 hours, your book is on Amazon. I mean, how neat is that? To have imagine that. You could take content that you have and have a book on Amazon within 24 hours or less. And I got to tell you, from a sales perspective, from a marketing perspective, There's really not a better way to build your brand and to be successful and to get more clients and to get more credibility than sending somebody a link to your book on Amazon. I mean, let's be honest. It's really an amazing way to do it. And even better, get a print-on-demand version of the book and send it to the person with you signing it. Ask Arnie how powerful that is in closing business when he walks in and drops off a copy of his book. Believe me, it makes sense. There are other places you can do this as well, called Pubit, which is the Barnes & Noble end of digital publishing. Smashwords, which is an amazing company where you can upload your book. You can also upload your book to Sony and iTunes and other places. By the way, you don't need an ISBN number anymore. This is another one of those traditional publishing myths. You know, oh, nobody can get an ISBN number or they cost too much money. You don't need them. Digital books don't need ISBN numbers. ISBN numbers are those things that people needed for slotting for bookstores. Okay? And by the way, bookstores, I want to just throw this last myth out there. Just because you're traditionally published doesn't mean your book's going to be put in a bookstore, because that's one of the carrot and the stick things that traditional publishers throw at you. When I had my book published, they said, well, your book's going to be put in the bookstores. Yeah, it was. I found out there in all of the Barnes & Nobles out of the United States, my book was in one of 5 of those stores, and I had one book in each store. So does that bookstore distribution? The truth is that the bookstores are dying. Whether or not you want to believe it or not, it's true. And the truth is that the bookstores are not they don't want to take risk anymore. So they're only going to order books that they know are going to sell. And if you're a new author and you haven't proven that you can sell, they're not going to order your books in the store. And the traditional publishers have no pull over whether or not Barnes & Noble is going to order more of your books. They want you to think that they do, but the truth is they don't. Because the bean counters at Barnes & Noble have a system. And they look and see how much copy of a book sells, and they decide whether or not, financially, whether that book's going to sell in their stores or not. And that's how they make their decisions. All right? So there are a lot of places. By the way, uploading to all these places is completely free. There are other tools that can help you along your journey of self-publishing as well. CreateSpace is one, which is actually owned by Amazon. CreateSpace, BookBaby, BookBrewer, Lulu.com, and then recently one of my favorite ones is called PressBooks.com. But CreateSpace and BookBaby, BookBrewer, and Lulu, what they do is they charge you fees. Excuse me. They charge you fees to go in and prepare your book and have it done for print on demand and have it uploaded. Look, if you don't want to sit down and figure out how to upload it to Amazon on your own, then you could pay a company like BookBrewer to do it, $40 to do it for you. You know, they're going to take a little cut because they did it of your profit to do that. Personally, I think that any of these services are great to use, or you can do it yourself. You have to make that decision, how much time and effort you want to put in. But I want you to understand this before we wrap up here. I want you to understand that it's not that hard. You know, Pressbooks is one of my favorite ones that I've been using lately. It's free now. Who knows if it'll be free forever? But you can literally take your book, and it's built on WordPress, and you build a chapter of your book just like you would create blog posts. And you, when you're done, you put your whole book in there, images and everything. You hit an export button, and it exports the file to an EPUB file or a PDF, and you use that and you upload it to Amazon or Pubit or Smashwords. I mean, it couldn't be more simple than that. So there are lots of options for you, but you have to decide what you want to do, why you're writing the book, do you want to put the effort in, how much of this do you want to do, and these are all things to consider. And that's what I was just trying to do today. I wanted to make sure that you just understood what was possible, what existed. You're going to have to make your own decision. You're going to have to decide. If you can get a traditionally published deal and you think it makes sense and it's going to work for you, by all means, go get it. But if you're like me and you say, well, it doesn't really work for what I'm trying to do, you may want to consider these DIY options, do it yourself. So we're going to take a few questions here in a moment. If you'd like to download or buy printed copies of my books, you can go to jimkukralbooks.com. It will just take you to my book page on Amazon. You can also just go to jimkukral.com and watch some of my videos and learn about my books there. Digitalbooklaunch.com is the company that I run right now. We believe that book marketing starts at book conception. If you have an idea for a book in your head or a book that's done, you need to start marketing it now. That means getting a cover done, getting a landing page or website for it, and start selling it or building the launch of it now. Because that, remember I talked about building your platform? That is how you sell books. If you want to connect with me on Twitter, I'm just Jim Kukral on Twitter. There's my email address as well. And I also have a very special price on ebook cover designs. If you need an ebook cover design done, go to digitalbooklaunch.com. You can check out the pricing there. But I'm ready for questions. I think 42 minutes came right in under the wire. How'd I do?
Very good. Awesome presentation, Jim. Thank you very much. I can tell you I learned a lot. We self-published Arnie's book. I wish I'd known some of these things, but it's all a learning process, and there's books on how to publish books now, so it's all out there. It's all public. We do have a few questions. If you're ready.
I'm ready.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
So this is from BBO Price. He's asking, I'm having issues with graphics uploads on CreateSpace. Have tried outsourcing everything, and they still reject them. So we used CreateSpace, so I might be able to answer that, but not sure if you have any insight on that.
So CreateSpace gives you templates. I assume you're talking about for the print-on-demand version of your book. When you do a print-on-demand version, you of course have to come up with the high-resolution cover, spine, and back cover for your book, because that's what they need to print the book, right? So what I would suggest is go into CreateSpace, and they have downloadable templates in Photoshop form and all kinds of forms. Take the template that they have and just make sure you modify it to their guidelines, and you should be fine.
Yep, yeah, they have a lot of tools available, and I know that they have some customer service people as well who are willing to answer questions. He also asked if you use CreateSpace, then you can't use the others, correct?
Well, no, you can. CreateSpace does multiple things for you. CreateSpace can, they'll do marketing for you. They'll upload the book to Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I don't know if they do Barnes and Noble, but they'll make a print-on-demand version of your book. CreateSpace, those companies are service provider companies. They are the middleman between you doing the things yourself. Okay. So they charge fees. That's how they make money. So you can use another company to do it if you want instead. It doesn't make sense why you pay them to do one thing and then pay another company to do the same thing, though.
Right. Let's see. Should I use CreateSpace or Lightning Source?
I've heard amazing things about Lightning Source for print-on-demand. I personally have never used either. I've used Book Brewer for my books that I've done print-on-demand, and I've been pretty happy with them. But I spent a lot of time on the Kindle boards, the writer's board, and I hear a lot of people say great things about the Lightning Source.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to print-on-demand, how long does the buyer have to wait to receive the book?
I think it's like 3 or 4 days till it ships, or maybe even less. It's really not. I mean, the technology is here. It's just so amazing now that they can do that. I mean, I'm holding a print copy of one of my books, or 2 of my books in my hands right now. And it's a beautiful paperback book, and it's glossy, and the cover is beautiful, and I leave it on my desk, and I put it on my bookshelf, and people have no ideas. And they order the print book, and they love it.
Mm-hmm. And
Mike?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to jump in and say, Jim, I know that people have received my book the next day. I don't know if at this point it's being inventoried or not, but it's basically running through CreateSpace.
Great.
And as far as ISBN numbers, you mentioned that they weren't necessary. I think that was when you were talking about the digital form.
Yeah, that's why I specifically said that if you're doing digital books, you don't need an ISBN number. But if you're going to do books that are going to go in bookstores and things like that, you can buy an ISBN number for, some places will sell them as low as $10 and places like that. Also, when you upload books to places like through CreateSpace, they have services where they'll sell you one, and you can just buy one through them. Mm-hmm. My point about, if I had more time, I would have talked about all of the things that stop us from being successful in this industry, it's little things like that that stop people from moving forward because they get so hung up on, well, I have to have an ISBN number, and I don't know where to buy it, and this and that. I just want to tell you that those things, all they do is stop you from being successful. The little things like that, don't worry about having the right ISBN number and buying it from the right place. Those are things that you can deal with later that just shouldn't slow you down from accomplishing your goal of getting something done.
Yeah, it definitely all seems pretty intimidating, but
absolutely, it's designed that way. The traditional publishers of the world designed the book publishing process to be intimidating, and it's all been changed, though. Remember that shift? We're seeing that shift because more authors who have had books for years, and people have been sitting on 20 novels that they could never get an agent for or a publisher for the last 30 years, are self-publishing now and making $30,000 a month from them.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Question from Steve. If I have a book on Kindle or iTunes, do I have to have it the same price when I sell it on my website?
All right, so you can sell it however you want, wherever you want, because you own it. The only caveat to that is this. Amazon has a thing called price match. When you sign the contract, when you upload a book into the Kindle system, Amazon reserves the right to price the book however they want, whenever they want. Okay? That's one of Amazon's rules. If Amazon sees that you're giving the book away or selling it for less on Barnes & Noble or Smashwords, Amazon reserves the right to automatically change the price of your book to $0 or whatever price to beat the price, whatever they want to do. And you sign that away. So I just recently saw a story about a gentleman that exactly that situation happened to. He put his book on Amazon for, I think it was $4.99 or something. And Amazon found out that he was giving the book away on his website. And because somebody just reported it, there's a little button on every Amazon page that says, I found this at a lower price. And Amazon said, all right, well, if you're going to give it away, so are we. So Amazon just changed his book to price to $0. And he lost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars because Amazon just gave his book away. So that can happen.
All right. And then I had a question. When you were talking about length, are you talking shorter is better for business books? Or are you talking about all types of books? I know that, for example, the Harry Potters are very long.
Well, I'm just giving you my opinion. I believe that, as a sales and marketing guy, I believe that, customers, people really are losing their time span, for anything. And maybe it's just me as a marketer, maybe I'm just, I don't know. But I believe that people want faster, to consume things faster and to get things faster. And as a business person, I think it makes more sense, okay? I personally believe it makes more sense to have shorter pieces because you can get somebody through and intrigued into a shorter piece and then have them say, wow, that was really good. And then next time he releases something, if it's only $3, I got to have that. I know it's going to be fast. I know it's going to be entertaining or problem-solving or helpful or fun. And I know that I got to have it. And when you're talking about pricing for digital books now, the sweet spot is between 99 cents and $10, which is what Amazon wants you to price it at. So when you start getting over $10 was when people there's that little switch everybody has in their head, and we all do it, whether or not something is worth the price. We weigh whether or not it's worth it. And for $1.99, you're looking at that and you're like, wow, that's $1.99. It's an impulse purchase. And as a sales and marketer, I always try to create impulse purchases for whatever I sell because you want people to purchase impulsively because that's when you make more money.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a reason the donuts are on the end of the aisle by the milk at the end of the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason they're there.
Oh, yeah. Love those Krispy Kremes. Let's take one more question, and then once again we can continue the conversation on Twitter. Do you create an entirely different website for your book or just a landing page?
All right, so I'm a believer that book marketing starts at book conception. The instant that you have the idea for your book, I believe that you should come up with the final title for it. Next thing you should do is get a book cover made for it so that it's tangible, it's real. then you should build a website or a landing page or both for it. Now, I personally have had success building landing pages for my books where I pre-fund the book, take pledges, or I build email lists for them. You know, I believe that's what my company, Digital Book Launch, does. Okay, we help people get that initial conception up and do that. You can build a whole website for it if you want. You can build a whole blog for it if you want. I have a whole blog that promotes my No Publisher Needed blog, a book. That's just a blog that talks about that industry. So it's really a matter of what your goal is. And usually the goal should be to build awareness, to build a list of people who want to buy your book when it's done, or to pre-fund or pre-sell your book. The question is, which one of those things do you want to do? And that's what we help people do. But you should start the minute you have it, because if you don't, if you wait, you're behind the 8 ball. I've seen too many authors do this before, which is they'll write the book, and then all of a sudden one day they'll be like, hey, I just finished a book. And everyone's like, what? You just wrote a book? You know, I've been writing it for the last 6 months. Well, guess what? For the last 6 months, you should have been building email list subscribers for, so you could launch the book today and sell thousands of copies of it. You should have been pre-funding the book. You should have been getting people excited about it, releasing chapters of the book. You should have been doing all of those things. And that is key to being successful when you're launching a product or a book or anything.
Yeah, start building that momentum soon so that the launch is really big and it carries through. So, well, thank you, Jim, very much for your presentation today. We have it recorded, so we're going to put it up on the site on that landing page, and I'll send a link out to everyone. Arnie, I'm not sure if you had any other comments for today, but we will.
No, not really. Just to thank everybody for joining us, and especially thank Jim for a great presentation.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and have a great day. I'm Sarah Moraes with Jim Kukral and Arnie Ken. We will talk to you later.